More than 50% of prisoners currently admit to having some sort of drug addiction. Think about that for a second. More than 50%. What a startling number, right? Hi, my name is Bridget, and I'm here to talk to you today why I believe those suffering from drug addiction should be placed in hospitals or rehab centers instead of getting jail time. Unfortunately, those currently in America who are inflicted with drug addiction are treated as criminals, and they are sentenced to jail instead of a mandatory treatment at a rehab center. By doing this, we're actually punishing the victims instead of the source. This social problem calls for immediate attention, in my opinion. Placing drug addicts in jail is not the best solution because while they are in jail, they will not receive proper treatment. It actually ends up costing more money than the alternative, and the statistics show those who would return to jail are a lot higher than those who would have been admitted into a rehab center from the beginning. Let's look at these points a little bit further. First and foremost, drug addiction is in fact a disease and should be treated as such. Precisely, the American Addiction Center's website stated that drug addiction is considered, not only drug addiction, but addiction in general is considered a highly treatable disease and recovery is attainable. However, it's impossible to find the proper treatment needed to attain recovery in jail. The proper doctors, nurses, staff, and environment that contributes to recovery are found in a hospital and not within our prison system. The National Institute on Drug Abuse wrote an article on the matter, and they found that research showed that combining treatment medications with behavioral therapy is the best way to ensure success for most patients. Unfortunately, all of that the addict would find in jail is a suppressive environment with all the wrong influences and not the positive space they need to be treated and free from addiction. Additionally, records show that the cost for putting drug addicts in jail is a lot higher than that of placing them in a hospital to receive treatment. In fact, one of the leading experts in behavioral health, the Baltimore Behavioral Health System, reported that in 2014, the cost of incarceration was $26,000 as opposed to the cost of treatment in a rehab center, which was only $5,278. The numbers do not lie. Do the math. By helping those afflicted with addiction to receive the necessary attention, you would also be helping our country's economic well-being. It's a win-win approach. Finally, the research shows that those drug addicts who are sent to jail instead of a rehab center have a much higher chance at returning back to jail. This path clearly doesn't offer the tools needed to aid the addiction. The National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence found that for many in the criminal justice system, preventing future crime and rearrest after discharge is impossible without the treatment of addiction. It's clear that by sending those affected to jail, we're only putting a band-aid on the problem and not giving it a solution. I think our goal should be to help those who need it, and prison is clearly not the answer. This social issue has so many opposing views, as you can imagine. Many argue that the person still committed a crime that got them to be in jail, and so they should be held accountable for it. Well, it's known that while you're on any drug or alcohol or addiction, you are actually suffering from mental issues, where one may be so consumed of the hunger for the drug, they forget all morale and ethics. Again, this shows they are the victim and not the source. Many also agree that the number of drug users is being decreased by sending the addict to jail. Okay, while this may be true, let's be honest. The suppliers are still going to be finding ways to bring illegal drugs to our communities in a much larger scale, and there will always be users if we do not start treating the addiction. Finally, many think those being given a chance to go out of rehab center instead of jail might find a way out of the rehab center back to their old ways. Actually, on contrary belief, rehab centers are extremely secure and are passionate about getting the help that patients need at all costs. It's very difficult to escape one of these centers. I propose a simple solution to this issue. In my opinion, the only reasonable way to handle this social epidemic is to have first offenders attend a mandatory rehab program where they can receive adequate treatment instead of being sentenced to jail. As humanity, we must take care of one another, and those who suffer from addiction need our help. Any crime committed because of this addiction is a social cry for help, and they should not be punished for it. I need you to imagine living in a society where we all try to help, not only ourselves, but one another. Sit down for a second and visualize what the future can be if we begin action on this now. A culture where less people are affected by addiction. We all know someone who has been a victim of drugs. As a matter of fact, a Poe Research Center survey conducted in August found that 46% of U.S. adults say they have a family member or close friend who is either addicted to drugs or has been in the past. Let's help create a better tomorrow for future generations. Let's start now. Let's start helping victims of addiction. I actually have a petition that I started to be able to bring up to local government asking for change. Let your voice be heard. Let's have our voices be heard, and let's give victims of drug addiction a positive second chance at life. Thank you. More than 50% of prisoners currently admit to having some sort of drug addiction. Think about that for a second. More than 50%. What a startling number, right? Hi, my name is Bridget, and I'm here to talk